Hello and welcome to Podcast Review 7. This is a slightly different one again. Earning Your Edge, Decoding Excellence in Golf and Life, episode 70. So it's a golf-oriented podcast. They didn't actually talk a lot about golf, so it was kind of alright. And everything they did talk about in golf was quite understandable for someone who could not care at all about the sport of golf. Episode 70, it's called Elite Sports Psychology with Trevor Moawad. I've heard of the name Moawad before, from Positive Psychology back in the day, but this is actually his son. But yeah, he's the author of a book called It Takes What It Takes. Talking about, so I'll dive right in. Talking about nature nurture, there's quite a lot to take from this one actually. So they were talking about nature nurture to start with. They brought up a point of, you do get a lot of natural kind of clutch performers who always pull it out of the bag, on the big competition day, and that's quite hard to teach. If you're kind of person who shies away from that, then it might be quite hard to come back from. They use an example of a guy playing soccer in America, Adu or something, Edu maybe, I forgot his name, something Adu, I think. He was very good apparently, but he was like unbelievable as a kid and then never got to the kind of elite level. And they said that the aggregate of marginal gains is a lot more important than the natural clutch performer. So at some point, your natural talent will not run out, but everyone else will catch up. Because of, yes, they're also naturally unbelievable, but an aggregate of marginal gains, they're getting 10 minutes more sleep one day kind of adds up, and eating X amount better adds up. There's a lot of very, very, very incredible athletes, way more than you think, out there, but just not at the right time. So if you can imagine someone like Johan Blake, who will always probably, for a long time, will probably be the second best sprinter ever. I guess it depends on what the Americans are doing nowadays, but if Usain Bolt had never been born, and Blake was just Blake, he would have been the Usain Bolt of that time. He would have had all the, obviously, way more endorsements, and his times are still absolutely ridiculous. I think he ran 19:26 in the 200, which is absolutely absurd, and 9:69, I think, alongside a windy Tyson Gay. But yeah, just not at the right time, and that's just the way it is. You have to learn how to win, and when I say that, you also have to learn how to lose, but you have to learn how to win, playing under pressure and closing a game out, or closing a competition out, and that you can get that a lot from your family as a kid. If you've got very high ego family who are very motivated by your performance, that's not going to serve you very well. If you've got a family who kind of sits back a little bit more, pushes you to be the best you can be, but that's it, doesn't, go over the top, that can help quite a lot, because pressure is the same in all ages and all situations. So they use the example of, if you're playing like a five-a-side football game for your like primary school. I remember playing football in primary school. They're some of the biggest pressure situations I've ever been in, even though it meant absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. But they use that example compared to like a PGA Tour. I think I remember playing in it was actually the cup semi-final of the primary school cup back home, and the guys we beat in the final were actually a lot worse, but the team in the semi-final it was us versus them, and it was basically whoever won that would have won overall. They were the two top teams in the area, and it went to extra time. It was 4-4. It went to extra time, and I've never felt more nervous. Compete on the British stage next to elite athletes, and didn't feel anywhere near as nervous as that. So pressure is the same. So learning it at a young age, and having a family who kind of overly push you at that age will not be useful, because you will struggle with the pressure aspect. You might be way too much, and you might crash and burn. They use the example of Sharapova. I think Sharapova was tennis. Now this is good news for me, she was a perfectionist, but in a good way. So she always strove for perfection. She always wanted to better herself, but she also knew how to lose gracefully. which is actually one of the biggest things in sport. People saying that, they mentioned something about one of the worst things you can do in sport is be that guy who just doesn't, who thinks all losers are losers. Kind of, what was it? Something like that, and it's like, that's not losing gracefully, and that is not going to lead to a good performance, because unintentionally you start to kind of manifest negativity. This guy's all about neutral thinking and negative versus positive thinking, which we'll get onto in a minute. But you have to be able to lose gracefully and say, when you lose, that you were beaten by a better person on the day. Now, on the day is crucial, but so yeah, neutral thinking. His father was pioneer of positive psychology. He thought that all this thinking about positive thinking and thinking positively was basically bull, as do I. But he thought, until an actual tragedy in his life struck, which was at uni for him, he didn't realise how much it had helped him. And then he had this moment where he realised that if he hadn't have done all that, he would have dropped out of uni. And now I do agree with that, and I also agree that if you've never had tragedy in your life and you've never had hardship, then you wouldn't even be able to comprehend this. I think a lot of times, if tragedy and circumstance doesn't destroy you, you will be made stronger. Now, obviously, as a kid, if you have tragedy, you don't care about being stronger. You just want to be safe, which is absolutely fine. But having a tragedy in your life in the past, or I personally, slightly off topic from the podcast, but I personally believe is a huge contributing factor to psychology now. And I don't have a huge experience of working with elite athletes, but a lot of the higher level athletes I know have had some kind of tragedy, and they now understand how to work hard and get through hardship, and it's not a competition of whose life is the worst kind of thing, but because no one cares, for one. But I think if you've had, again, this comes down to the parental thing, but if you've had a very kind of protected, easy, I don't want to say easy life, but you know how it is. You might find it harder to overcome challenges when they do present themselves. Now, if you've been taught values like hard work and grit and just working basically, then I think you can counteract that, to be honest. But yeah, he was as a result, he was actually very into neutral thinking. Not necessarily doing more, like meditating and mindfulness, and because that's hard. Literally, that is just hard stuff to do, and he was saying that most of the time people don't carry on, or they don't even do it properly in the first place, to get the benefit. So he said, instead of adding more stuff, just don't do the stuff you don't need, which is the negative thinking. So instead of adding in more positive thinking stimulus, just take away all the negative thinking stimulus. So instead of thinking you're lost because you're terrible, I know this is something I do. Like, I'll always say, why am I so terrible? And maybe that's something that I need to work on. Having that kind of low self-image. The past is real, and we are conditioned to expect the worst. So the past is real. You have to acknowledge it. Nothing worse than someone saying, "Oh, it's in the past. It doesn't matter anymore." That's absolutely absurd. It's an excuse that people make when they can't live up to the fact that they've made mistakes in the past, and they'll never grow up enough to apologize for it, for example, or self-apologize for it if it's something that's only affected them. Positivity has a huge benefit, and it's been researched quite a lot. It has a huge benefit. I know it sounds kind of like hippie-ish, but being positive and having, in terms of mindset, and having a positive attitude and positive affirmations are very well researched, and they only work in the absence of negativity. So this is the key thing. If you lose, weightlifting competition, for example, if you lose that because you were terrible, you just were terrible. Your preparation was awful. You bombed out. You didn't do any extra work. Being sitting there and saying, "Oh yeah, I did really well. I tried my hardest." Is not going to do you. It's going to hinder you in the future. It's kind of self-protective to the point of delusional. It's lying to yourself essentially. Now, positivity has a huge effect if the negativity isn't there. So if you just had a really disappointing loss on the day, you tried your best, everything you did all the preparation well. Just on the day, one guy just came out and was just pulled out a lifetime performance kind of thing. That's when positivity and saying, "Oh, I came second or third or whatever, I can really build on this and whatnot." That's when that stuff is even more powerful. Now, I don't agree necessarily that thinking positive affirmations make positive things happen. I think it just affects your mood and mindset and outlook to the point where it can affect your behavior. But it doesn't. Saying things like "I'm going to be rich" does not make you rich. I never agree with that. Inside influence is 10 times more powerful than the outside influence. I don't know where they got the 10 times number from, but I'm sure they looked into it. I think this is quite self-explanatory. I think this is quite this is quite, it makes a lot of sense that your influence inside you is a bigger influence than what people outside of you think. I don't know if that would be the case with everyone, but this guy works in elite sports, so he works with a lot of NFL teams and I think tennis players maybe. Negativity is 4 to 7 times multiplied more powerful than positivity. So negative thoughts are a lot more powerful and affect you a lot more than positive thoughts, and that's why he was kind of against things like meditation and, as an example, and positive affirmations. I think obviously used in conjunction with not thinking negatively at all, they will absolutely work. But if you're someone who takes 10 minutes every day to positively affirm themselves, but then the rest of the 23 hours, 50 minutes is just unbelievably negative, then it's like trying to lose weight and doing a half-hour HIIT class and then only eating cakes and cheesecakes and whatnot on the outside. It makes absolutely no sense. So trying to actually just get rid of the negative rather than adding in more things and more practices, just get rid of the negative. And in my opinion, just do your best, man. Just do your best. I do like this aggregate of marginal gains. I'm not trying to make huge gains, but trying to make marginal gains in various aspects of your life, whether it's sleep, diet, mindset, stretching, for example. So yeah, negative is way more powerful than positive, and that's why he's saying let's try and get rid of it. You externalize negative talk. It's 70 times more likely that what you don't want to happen will influence you. So if you externalize negative talk, it's more likely that what you don't want to happen will influence you. The key takeaway messages from this podcast are, in my opinion, aggregate of marginal gains. So small little gains add up, and at some point you will outperform the people who are just naturally gifted, and that I think we know that. Try to get rid of negative thinking. At that point only, then maybe think about adding in positive thinking. Maybe I'll do another podcast going into each negative and positive a little bit more. That's why, because that's something I need to learn as well. Neutral thinking in certain situations is way more powerful than positive thinking, especially if you've not performed to your standard. That's when neutral thinking is a bit more useful. And in my opinion, the past is real. Acknowledge that, but also in the future, just continually try your hardest. Do your best. Aggregate of marginal gains. Try to cut out negativity. I hope these are good. I hope these are useful. I'm learning quite a lot. I hope everyone else is learning quite a lot. If anyone has any questions, probably Instagram me, don't YouTube me, comment me, because I don't see them. Another cracking one.